Imagine you are locked in this, like, really bitter, high-stakes conflict. You're on your knees. You are praying to your God, absolutely begging for victory and justice over your worst enemy.
Right, a completely natural human reaction in that situation.
Exactly. But now, imagine the sudden, honestly terrifying realization that your enemy is praying to the exact same God.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that changes things.
And because you were the one who threw the first punch, like, because you crossed a line, God is actually going to take your enemy's side against you.
It completely shatters the illusion of the universe as your personal cheering section, doesn't it?
Completely.
It forces this radical shift in how you view your own righteousness.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're stepping away from the emotive, surface-level aesthetics of religion.
Right, we're not talking about stained glass today.
No, not the shiny stained glass or the beautiful calligraphy. We are examining the structural foundation, the actual architectural blueprints of a faith practiced by over 1 billion people.
A massive portion of the globe.
Right. We're diving into a really highly analytical lecture series by Coach De Bruyns, specifically a piece titled About Islam Part 1, The God Concept.
And, this is such a vital exploration for you, the listener, whether you're trying to catch up on world religions, prepping for a sociology class, or just insanely curious about how different human beings construct their reality.
Because it really shapes everything.
Exactly. Understanding this specific framework offers a fascinating lens into how people view their relationship with the universe, with morality, and crucially with their neighbors.
And to be totally clear about our mission today, we are not here for, like, emotive feel-good preaching.
No, not at all.
If you want a rock star speaker to hike you up with spiritual platitudes for 10 minutes, I mean, the internet is full of that.
Plenty of that out there.
Yeah, this isn't that. This is about unpacking the actual architectural philosophy of Islam.
Yeah.
Like, how does this religion construct its concept of God from the ground up?
Right. And the material we're analyzing is deliberately targeted at non-Muslims and thinking Muslims, bypassing all the spiritual fluff in favor of rigorous, comprehensive logic.
It's very analytical.
Very. Picture the mental space we're operating in today as a classic sunlit library. You know, the kind with the dust motes dancing in the light, where ancient leather-bound texts sit right alongside modern philosophical treatises.
I love that image. Okay, let's unpack this, because the very first foundational premise laid out in this framework completely flipped my expectations.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, when we talk about religion in the modern West, we usually default to thinking of it as a deeply personal, highly individualized journey.
Oh, absolutely. The whole find your truth mentality.
Exactly. You go out, you find your truth, you build your personal relationship with the divine. It's a private affair.
Right.
But this analytical framework insists that Islam, from its absolute outset, is essentially and primarily a communal religion.
It is a massive paradigm shift. It really challenges the hyper-individualistic spiritualism that dominates so much of modern thought right now.
Yeah, it totally does.
In the Western framework, the community might be a nice byproduct of religion, but the core is the self. In this framework, the community is the point.
I kept thinking of it like a fitness analogy.
Oh, I like that. Go on.
Like, modern Western spirituality often feels like a solo gym workout.
Yeah.
You've got your noise-canceling headphones on, you're staring at yourself in the mirror, tracking your own personal heart rate, lifting your own weights.
A very solitary pursuit.
Right. But this Islamic paradigm, it's not a solo workout, it's a team sport.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize the difference. But we have to be careful not to oversimplify it right now.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not that the individual workout doesn't matter. It's that the individual workout exists for the sake of the team.
Oh, okay.
The framework is very clear that Islam certainly has rigorous components designed to foster your individual relationship with God. It is a highly spiritual religion.
Right, there's still a lot of personal practice.
Exactly. But those individual components exist primarily so that you, as an individual, can better engage with the broader community around you.
Hold on, let me push back on that for a second.
Sure.
If I'm listening to this from a Western perspective, that sounds almost suffocating.
It can feel that way.
Because if everything is engineered for the collective, doesn't the individual just get erased? We love our personal spiritual journeys.
Yeah.
Where do I fit in if my entire religious existence is just about serving the group?
That is the natural modern objection, absolutely. But the framework doesn't view the individual and the community as a zero-sum game where one must be erased for the other to thrive.
Okay, so how do they coexist?
Instead, it views the perfected individual as the necessary building block for a healthy society. Think of the solitary prayer, the month of fasting, the deep reflection.
Right.
In this architectural blueprint, those aren't escapes from reality. They're intense training
Oh,
camps.
wow. Training camps.
Yeah. You fast so you understand the hunger of the poor in your community. You pray to strip away your ego so you don't act arrogantly toward your neighbor. The individual isn't erased, the individual is optimized for social friction.
So the solitary practice is essentially just lacing up your cleats before you get on the field with everyone else.
Precisely. You really cannot understand this concept of God without understanding that this God is overseeing a collective, not just curating a customized spiritual retreat for your ego.
But you can't enforce a community-first, anti-tribal system on millions of inherently selfish human beings unless the ultimate authority enforcing those rules is completely immune to tribalism.
That's the crux of it, yeah.
If the system is communal, the enforcer must be universal. Who is that enforcer? What kind of creator is actually overseeing this community?
Well, that requires us to examine the nature of God in this specific framework. Like Judaism and Christianity, Islam acknowledges God as the creator of the heavens and the earth.
The philosophical baseline.
Right. Humans look around, see the complexity of creation, and reason that there must be a creator. But here, we see a fascinating divergence from a very popular philosophical concept,
Which is?
the idea of the clockmaker God.
The anti-clockmaker God. I love this concept.
It's so distinct.
It is. In philosophy, especially around the Enlightenment with deism, you have this idea where God is a supreme clockmaker. He built the intricate machinery of the universe, wound up the gears, set the pendulum swinging, and then just walked away.
Right, he retired.
Yeah, he stepped back and let the universe run on its own physical laws.
And that makes God incredibly abstract and distant. But the Quranic God, Allah, is the exact opposite of that aloof clockmaker.
How so?
The framework details that while God created everything, he didn't just establish himself on a throne, hit autopilot, and check out.
Right.
He is deeply, intimately active in every single microsecond. He is the nourisher and sustainer of the heavens and the earth. He is constantly creating, consistently renewing creation.
Wow.
He is defined fundamentally as life self-subsisting.
See, this is where the sheer scale of this God concept threatens to break a human brain.
It is massive.
Because on one hand, you have the almighty, omnipotent designer, the grand planner actively holding the fusion reactions of billions of stars together right now.
Yes.
But on the other hand, the framework points to a very specific, famous phrase from the Quran. God is closer to your jugular vein.
It is a striking, visceral image. The jugular vein is your literal lifeline. It's the most vital, vulnerable part of your physical existence.
And it's inside of you.
Exactly. So you have this massive tension, absolute terrifying cosmic supremacy combined with an almost unimaginably intimate proximity.
It's like the difference between a billionaire CEO who sits in a glass boardroom looking at quarterly spreadsheets versus like a hyper-advanced quantum computer that is simultaneously running the global supply chain, calculating the trajectory of every satellite, and actively monitoring the exact temperature of the cup of coffee sitting on your desk.
That really captures the sheer processing power, so to speak, of this theology. It's an intimate God, but critically, it is not a myopic God.
Right, because if you look at modern, highly individualized spiritualism, God is basically treated like a personal assistant,
Oh, completely.
a cosmic buddy who exists just to boost your self-esteem, avenge your petty workplace grievances, and help you find a great parking spot downtown.
The myopic stance. An intimate God, but one who is exclusively your intimate God.
Which poses a massive problem for the listener to consider, like, how do you reconcile a God who is currently sustaining the entire cosmos, but who is also personally, intimately involved in the minutiae of your daily life?
You reconcile it by realizing that this creates an immediate, profound ethical paradox.
Okay, lay it out for me.
Because if this intensely personal, intimate God is also the omnipotent God over everyone else, what happens when you run into conflict with another person?
Boom, the absolute monotheism problem, the universal umpire.
What's fascinating here is how absolute monotheism, when taken to its rigorous logical conclusion, completely upends personal tribalism.
It really does.
The basic premise of Islam is, La ilaha illallah, there is absolutely only one God. Now, Judaism and Christianity share the premise of monotheism.
Right, of course.
But the specific, uncompromising application within this framework is this. The exact same God you are praying to when you worship, the God you expect to help you, the God you are asking to back you up in a dispute, is the exact same God your enemies are praying to.
The psychological implication of that is just staggering. In a dispute, you never actually know which way God's justice is flowing.
Exactly.
You might be praying to God for justice against someone who wronged you, but the person you are fighting might be praying to God because you wronged them.
And God, being the universal umpire, is not swayed by your personal branding as a believer. You don't know if God is avenging you against someone else or if God is actively avenging someone else against you.
Wait, let me stop you there. Because in theory, that sounds incredibly just. It sounds like a perfect system of accountability.
It does.
But practically, human beings are absolute masters of rationalization. Doesn't everyone going into a conflict genuinely believe they are the ones being wronged?
Always.
How does this framework prevent a believer from just assuming, well, I'm the good guy, so God is obviously on my side, and my enemy is the oppressor?
That is the crucial vulnerability in human psychology, and it's exactly why the framework ties back to our very first premise, the communal nature of the religion.
Circling back.
Yes, you cannot just retreat into your mind and decide you are righteous. The framework provides a harsh theological rule. The likelihood of losing God's favor is tied primarily to your objective treatment of other people.
Not your feelings of righteousness, your actual treatment of others.
Exactly. If you are an oppressor, if you cheat someone in a business deal, if you slander your neighbor, if you withhold someone's rights, you are highly likely to lose God's favor because you are perpetuating a measurable injustice against another human being. And within this framework, when you perpetuate injustice against a human, you are, in effect, perpetuating an injustice against God himself.
Wow.
In that scenario, God will actively support the wronged party against you, regardless of how piously you pray in private.
It completely dismantles the idea that you can be a terrible neighbor, a ruthless business person, or an abusive partner, but still consider yourself a good religious person just by praying hard enough on the weekend.
Totally dismantles it.
The road to paradise isn't just about private piety. It is explicitly through justice. You literally cannot bypass the community to get to God.
It creates a closed loop of accountability. Your salvation is bottlenecked by your morality toward others.
But to establish this incredibly strict, unbroken chain of universal justice, Islam had to ensure its concept of God was utterly indivisible.
Right, no loopholes.
It couldn't allow for any theological gray areas where tribalism could sneak back in. That meant drawing some very hard, very clear lines to differentiate itself from the belief systems that were already established in the region.
Which requires us to look at the geopolitical and historical timeline. Islam, as brought by the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century, arrived roughly 600 years after Christianity.
A long time.
Yes. By that time, the landscape was heavily dominated by established Christian and Jewish tribes. Christian doctrine, specifically, was a massive theological force.
Naturally.
And a significant amount of Islamic doctrine is explicitly focused on rectifying what it views as Christian misconceptions.
Specifically the Trinity. The concept of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Islam unequivocally rejects this.
Entirely.
It insists that God does not have children, was not born, begets not, and is not a physical thing of creation.
The Quran actively debunks the idea that Jesus is the Son of God. But what is structurally fascinating is how it does this.
Yeah, this part blew my mind.
It doesn't just issue a blanket denial. You are wrong, we are right. In a landscape filled with devout Christians, that wouldn't persuade anyone. Instead, it engages in highly sophisticated rhetorical debate.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you think of ancient religious texts, you usually think of absolute declarations from on high.
Just edicts.
Right. But the Quran actually presents a brilliant logical counter-argument, almost like a lawyer in a courtroom, designed specifically to appeal to a Christian's existing beliefs.
Yes, meeting them where they are.
Exactly. The Christian argument is that Jesus must be the physical Son of God because he had no human father. He was born immaculately to Mary, therefore he must be divine.
And the Quran counters this by pointing directly at a figure Christians already deeply revere and accept: Adam.
The Jesus is Adam argument. It's a total rhetorical jujitsu move.
Using their own momentum.
Using the opponent's own momentum against them. The argument goes like this. You Christians already believe that Adam was the first man. You believe God fashioned Adam out of clay and simply breathed his spirit into him. Adam didn't have a human father. In fact, Adam didn't even have a human mother. Yet you don't call Adam the physical son of God in divine co-equal sense. You just accept that God created him miraculously.
Therefore, the logical proof concludes the likeness of Jesus is exactly like the likeness of Adam. God simply said to a thing, be, and it was.
I just have to marvel at the structural logic there. Notice what it doesn't do.
What's that?
It doesn't attack the Immaculate Conception itself. Muslims entirely believe in the Immaculate Conception of Jesus.
Yes, they do.
They believe the angel came to Mary. She asked how she could have a son without a man touching her, and the angel replied that it is easy for God. He just says be. So Islam shares that foundational premise with Christianity.
The shared ground.
Yeah, but it takes that shared premise and completely reframes it to dismantle the conclusion that Jesus must therefore be a divine son.
It's an appeal to consistency. If A, Adam, can be created without parents by divine command without being a deity, then B, Jesus can be created without a father by divine command without being a deity.
It's airtight logic.
It insists on keeping God completely separate from the mechanics of human reproduction, parentage, or division. God is far beyond anything the human imagination can construct or associate with him. It seals off that indivisible, absolute monotheism we talked about earlier.
Okay, so let's look at what we have built so far. We have this picture of a God who is intricately involved as a quantum-level sustainer, who demands strict communal justice as a universal umpire, and who is entirely separate from human attributes like parentage.
A very complex picture.
You'd think a religion with a God this complex, as mathematically precise, would just have a massive systematic textbook right at the beginning of its scripture explaining exactly who this God is, like a glossary of terms.
You would think so. A chapter titled The Abstract Attributes of the Divine. But that is perhaps the most fascinating structural choice in the entire text. It doesn't exist.
This blew my mind. Despite the religion being entirely obsessively focused on God, there isn't a single long chapter in the Quran dedicated only to explaining God in the abstract.
Not one.
There is one tiny chapter, just 3 or 4 sentences long, but other than that, nothing. No long, dry, philosophical treatises mapping out the theology.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the reason for this structural choice makes perfect sense. The framework argues that God's relevance to us cannot ever be an abstraction.
Why not?
Because human beings are not abstract creatures.
We are messy. We eat, we sleep, we argue over property lines, we trade goods, we gossip, we fall in love, we get sick. We are entirely bound by our physical, interactive, daily friction.
Exactly. Therefore, a textbook on the abstract philosophy of God would be useless to our actual lived experience.
That makes a lot of sense.
Instead, the text disperses its information about God's nature throughout, entirely in relation to those messy human realities. God unveils himself through the friction.
Through the chaos.
He reveals his nature in the context of a battlefield strategy, or during a bitter marital dispute, or in the middle of a complex trade agreement.
God is defined by how he interacts with our daily chaos.
Precisely.
And through these interactions, a very specific dual temperament emerges.
Right. The temperament of God in this framework is a profound balancing act. On one hand, you have immense compassion. Almost every single chapter of the Quran begins by invoking God specifically in the name of compassion and mercy.
And there's actually a mathematical breakdown of this mercy provided in the Theology. It's almost like behavioral economics.
The math of divine reciprocation.
Yes, it's an incredibly asymmetric risk-to-reward structure. If you do something good, the text promises you will be rewarded tenfold. Your good deeds are multiplied by 10.
Wow.
But if you do something bad, something evil, you only receive the reciprocation for that exact thing. It's a 1-to-1 ratio for bad, a 10-to-1 ratio for good. The upside is mathematically rigged in your favor.
Which underscores a fundamental theological point. God's mercy vastly eclipses his wrath. The baseline assumption of the universe is forgiveness and love.
Yes.
However, and this is critical for the whole system to hold together, this emphasis on compassion does not mean the wrath is excluded. It's not just a universe of endless consequence-free hugs.
No.
Yeah.
Because a universe without consequences is a universe without justice. The God of Islam is also described as severe in punishment and demanding of obedience.
The sternness is very real.
That demand for justice, as we discussed with the universal umpire, has teeth. If you are an oppressor, you will face that severity. The mercy is mathematically greater, but the accountability is absolute.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the deep architectural blueprints today. We've seen that the structural foundation of Islam is inherently communal. It's a team sport, not a solo workout.
Right.
We've explored a creator who isn't a distant retired clockmaker, but an intimate quantum-level sustainer who is closer than your jugular vein. We've examined a theology where absolute monotheism means you can't claim God just for your own tribe, and where treating others justly is the literal required path to divine favor.
It's incredibly comprehensive.
We saw how it logically differentiates itself from existing doctrines through masterful debate rather than just denial. And finally, we saw that this complex God is revealed not through dry, abstract philosophy, but right in the middle of the messy, physical reality of the human experience.
This raises an important question, something for you to really sit with long after you stop listening to this deep dive.
I'm ready.
We live in a deeply, almost aggressively hyper-individualized modern world. We curate our own digital bubbles, we invent our own personal truths, and we often view community as an optional accessory to our personal brand.
Too true.
What happens to a society like ours when it is forced to encounter a foundational, deeply held worldview that insists your personal ultimate salvation is entirely, inextricably dependent on your responsibility to the collective community?
When the skyscraper of your life isn't just a standalone tower, but a load-bearing pillar for everyone else around you, it completely changes how you view the blueprints. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning, keep looking at the foundations, and we will see you next time.